constitute the contract.
In the lease proposal, the price of the piece of equipment is stated, and that is a lock. As I say, the only thing that will change will be the interest rates, which would be the prevailing rates at the time. I'm sorry, I don't have that information for you.
I guess, Laura, is this a good use of funds in your, I'm sorry to second guess you, but I just, anytime I hear the word lease, I think, especially if you have the wherewithal, why wouldn't you buy? So I understand why people lease cars. They get something new more frequently, looks nicer, but in the end, they don't own anything. And in the end, when you net it all out, it is more expensive, at least in those terms. And also, it mentions here that there's a financial benefit from taxation, which I think speaks to private business, but not to us. So anyway, I don't know. Can I get another read on this situation, or?
I will offer that the information, it's a policy decision, because we've gone back and forth. So one thing that you could look at as a lease for specialty equipment that tends to be expensive, that's an installment plan. And installment plans cost interest. So if you don't want your expenses to spike up and down, or your projects to be pushed off at the expense of something that you would cash purchase, that would be the same way with any of our debt. You cash purchase something, you remove the ability to use your cash to do more things. That is merely a philosophical policy decision by the governing body. And we've gone back and forth many times as governing bodies change. Lease, don't lease. We've done it with police cars. We've done it with large equipment. We're doing it with I think it's a wheel loader now. We have something that we bought on an installment plan. So I would argue that it can be your decision completely, but I would say you're taking larger sums for specialty, larger equipment out of circulation that you could be using to do other things at the same time if you put it on an installment plan. And that's technically what this is, although at the end you don't own it. Although I think that you could own it. I'm pretty sure that contract mentions something about purchasing if you chose to at the end, or you can trade it in.
But maybe, do we need all the equipment we're leasing? Maybe if a new set of eyes came in and said, well, we don't need all these trucks, we can buy them, make them last longer, and then in the end have something that's got residual value when it's time to upgrade. I guess, how important is a truck how much does the technology change that we need new technology every 4 years?
One thing about these pieces of equipment, they are high wear items. The booms wear, the hydraulics wear. The derrick digger that is currently held by the Water and Sewer Department was their former unit. When I was here, we spent most of the time fixing it because it was worn out. In the case of these pieces of equipment, they are essential for the operation, and to trade them off at a 4-year cycle or a 5-year cycle, in this case, basically catches them before they are in the downward cycle of wear.
Steve,
sorry.
Steve, you have a question?
I know. Other councilman gets on a roll, and then it's impossible for anybody else to speak. A couple of things. First of all, are these budgeted? Are they in our budget?
They're in the budget. They're currently budgeted, and in the proposed 2005 budget, they are included also, and they're included for the next however many years we will be leasing. So the projections include these too.
Secondly, we heard from our city administrator when she made this presentation about a month and a half ago, and she had stated that it was her ideal that large big-ticket items such as this that have high wear and high maintenance costs. It makes more sense to lease them because of the fact that maintenance is usually included in these contracts, and maintenance costs, as you just attested to with the picker that you were talking about, can be significantly expensive. And with these items being, onesie-twosie items, you're not talking about like large numbers, large purchases, so you don't get any kind of fleet discount on these things. You typically, if one's out of service, you lose 50% potentially of your entire capacity. So from those perspectives, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do anything other than lease. And I think that I've actually looked at other, and I did also read the contract. And this is, by the way, a standard lease agreement. This is not something that has been done specifically, to to, you know, against, or for Gardner. This is something that is a standard, agreement for any large lease of any kind of specialty equipment such as this. You know, from the standpoint of just overall expense, that includes maintenance, manpower, capital, expense for internal, you know, use by the departments, also the man-hours that it would cost within our operational authorities to be able to manage this, equipment over and above a lease, or over above a purchase price. We're talking about $500,000 typically or more, for equipment such as this. Am I correct in that, Cheryl? It's a lot of money, and we do have capital needs. We do have repairs. We have, you know, streets and sidewalks and gutters and a whole bunch of other things that could use that cash outlay. It comes down to a cash flow decision. Ultimately, a cash flow decision on a big ticket item is better from a lease standpoint versus a purchase standpoint. Am I somewhat correct in those assessments?
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, that's all I had to say.
Yes.
So was this, I'm sorry, is it okay?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So this spreadsheet you prepared,
I did not. This was prepared by Mr. Krawcheck.
so has anyone validated it for his assumptions?
I looked at it today. All I can say is he did make some assumptions for salvage value or the residual value for the machines. He was also had a figure for the testing that is required for these units. You do have to test and make sure that you don't have electric continuity, so the people in the bucket are safe in case they do make contact. The assumptions would not have changed from that time.
They were made 4 years ago then? They were made 4 years ago?
No, they were made last April.
Okay.
I'd like to add, I pretty much agree with what Steve said. However, I'd also additionally like to add about the safety. I think if we would go and buy the trucks or the equipment, then we would want to try to keep it in service longer, and I think that might jeopardize and be a safety concern. So that's why I like the lease agreement, and also the $400,000 savings over the lease span. So that's the direction I'm leaning.
Any other questions? I'd certainly entertain a motion.
I move we authorize the city administrator to accept lease proposals from Alltech Capital Services for the delivery of a small derrick digger truck and a large aerial lift truck in 2015, and to execute lease agreements for the trucks prior to delivery.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Shute, that we authorize the city administrator to accept the June 4th, 2014 lease proposal from Alltech Capital Services for the delivery of a small derrick digger truck and large aerial lift truck in 2015, and to execute lease agreements for the trucks prior to delivery. Any other questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries. New business item, David, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
New business item number 2. Consider appropriate action regarding a resolution to censure City Council Vice President Larry Fodovich for conduct detrimental to the spirit of the office of council member of the City of Gardner, Kansas. Council action form has Councilman Shute
Yes.
as the contact and presenter. So, Mr. Shute, if you have a presentation to make, now's the time.
I don't necessarily have a presentation. I think that the sentiment of the folks in this room and the folks that I've been, that have contacted me is pretty clear. I'm sure there's going to be some discussion on this. I do want to remind the body that an individual who's the subject of a censure vote cannot vote on his own censure. That's per Robert's rules, and so I want to make sure that is held to. That's all I have.
At this point, we open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 2.